You're too big to be working the front of the room." The words were spoken softly, almost casually, but somehow they cut through the ballroom louder than the string quartet playing beneath the chandeliers. My name was Claire Bennett. I was 27 years old, and until that moment, I had become very good at pretending comments like that didn't hurt. I kept my silver tray balanced against my palm, while 6 crystal champagne glasses trembled slightly beneath the lights. The woman who had spoken wore diamonds around her throat and a smile that never reached her eyes. Beside her, another woman covered a laugh with 2 perfectly manicured fingers. "I'm serious," she whispered. "Management should know better. This is a gala, not a neighborhood diner." I felt heat climb into my face. Around us, Manhattan's wealthiest guests continued talking beneath ceilings painted with gold leaf, but I noticed the glances. Quick ones, curious ones. The kind people gave when they wanted to watch someone being humiliated without admitting they were watching. I had spent years learning how to survive those looks. At 16, I wore oversized sweatshirts in July. At college, I avoided photographs. At 27, I had finally convinced myself that my body didn't require an apology. At least, I thought I had. "Excuse me," I said quietly. The woman tilted her head. "Oh, honey, don't take it personally." That sentence hurt worse than the first. I smiled because women like me learned early that smiling made other people comfortable. Then I turned and walked toward the service station. Every step felt heavier than the last. The ballroom stretched nearly 100 feet ahead of me. All marble, champagne, black tuxedos, and dresses that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. I suddenly felt enormous inside it. Not physically, just visible. Too visible. I reached the service table and set down my tray. My fingers were shaking. "Claire," my supervisor whispered. "Where are you going?" I reached for the small brass name tag pinned above my heart. "Home. Your shift isn't over." "I know." I pulled the pin free. "Claire Bennett." 8 little letters beneath the hotel logo. Somehow they looked pathetic sitting in my palm. "I'll take whatever penalty comes with leaving early." I placed the badge beside the champagne bottles and headed toward the ballroom doors. I didn't cry. That mattered to me. I could cry once I reached the subway. I could cry in my apartment where nobody could watch. But I would not give that room another piece of me. I was maybe 15 feet from the exit when a man's voice came from behind me. Calm. Deep. Not loud at all. "Stop." I stopped anyway. So did several conversations around me. That was strange. I turned slowly. A man was rising from a table near the darkest corner of the ballroom. Tall, broad-shouldered, black suit, white shirt, no tie. He looked somewhere in his mid-30s, with dark hair and a face that seemed almost unnaturally calm. I had noticed him earlier because everyone else seemed to notice him without staring directly at him. Now I understood why. The room had changed simply because he had stood up. He walked toward me without hurrying. People moved aside before he reached them. I tightened my fingers around my name tag. He stopped several feet away and looked at my face. Not my uniform, not my body. My face. "Why are you leaving?" he asked. I swallowed. Because apparently I'm too big for the room. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. He glanced toward the table behind me, then back at me. "And you believe them?" My embarrassment turned suddenly into irritation. "You don't know me." "No," he said. "But I know what happens when cruel people are allowed to become mirrors." I stared at him. Nobody spoke. Even the woman in diamonds had stopped smiling. The stranger stepped no closer. He didn't touch me. He didn't offer money. He simply held my gaze and said the 7 words that would follow me long after that night ended. "Don't let them decide your worth." I should have walked out. Instead, I stood there with my name tag pressed into my palm while the entire ballroom seemed to wait for my answer. "That is easy for you to say," I told him. His eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but interest. Up close, he looked even more out of place than I felt. His black suit fit perfectly, his silver watch caught the chandelier light, and there was a stillness about him that made everyone else seem restless. "Why is that?" he asked. I glanced around the room. Nobody was pretending not to listen anymore. Because nobody in this room would ever look at you and make you feel small. Somewhere behind him, a man quietly cleared his throat. My supervisor looked like he wanted to disappear behind the champagne station. The stranger, however, did something unexpected. He smiled. "Barely. You think so? Look around." I gestured toward the guests. "Half these people stopped breathing when you stood up." His gaze moved across the ballroom. People immediately found fascinating things to examine in their glasses. That is not respect, he said. I did not say it was. The faint smile disappeared. For 1 second, something passed through his expression that I could not name. Then the woman in diamonds approached us. Adrian, she said, suddenly sounding much less confident. This has clearly been misunderstood. Adrian. The name stirred something in my memory, but I could not place it. He did not look at her. Was it? She shifted uncomfortably. We were joking. She was not laughing. Silence. The woman opened her mouth, then closed it. Adrian finally turned toward her. He did not raise his voice. He did not insult her. Somehow, that made his words carry farther. A joke is supposed to leave more than one person smiling. Her cheeks reddened. She returned to her table without another word. I stared at him. You did not have to do that. Do what? Defend me. His attention returned to me. I was not defending you. It looked like it. You were already leaving on your own. That suggests you can defend yourself. I should have appreciated the answer. Instead, it irritated me. Then why stop me? Before he could respond, my supervisor hurried over. Mr. Cole, I sincerely apologize for the disturbance. Mr. Cole. That was when I remembered. Adrian Cole. I had seen his name in business magazines stacked in the hotel lobby. Real estate. Restaurants. Private investment firms. Rumors followed his name too. Always carefully worded, always vague. Connections. Influence. A man people discuss quietly. I looked around again and suddenly noticed the details I had missed. The two men standing near his table who had not touched their drinks. The hotel manager watching from 20 feet away. The way wealthy people avoided meeting Adrian's eyes. My stomach tightened. You are Adrian Cole. I am. And everyone here is afraid of you. He considered that for a moment. Not everyone. His eyes settled on mine. I realized what he meant, and despite myself, I almost laughed. Maybe I just did not know enough to be afraid. Maybe. He glanced at the brass tag still trapped between my fingers. Are you still leaving, Claire Bennett? Hearing my full name in his voice made me look down at the badge. Yes. His expression remained unreadable. Good. That caught me completely off guard. Good. If you stay, stay because you choose to. If you leave, leave because you choose to. He stepped aside, clearing the path to the doors. Just do not confuse their opinion with your decision. I looked at the exit, then at the champagne station, then at the woman who had humiliated me. For years, I had responded to rooms like this by making myself smaller, quieter, easier to overlook. Tonight, I had almost done it again. I slowly pinned my name tag back above my heart. Adrian watched without speaking. I picked up a fresh tray from the service station and balanced it steadily in one hand. I have 3 hours left on my shift, I said. Then you should probably get back to work. I took 2 steps before turning around. And for the record, Mr. Cole, you are still wrong. One eyebrow lifted. About what? You think nobody here is willing to tell you when you are wrong. His eyes held mine. I just did. This time, the smile reached his eyes. I noticed. And that was the moment I should have understood something had changed, because Adrian Cole was surrounded by hundreds of people who feared his attention, and somehow, for reasons I could not yet understand, I had just earned it. By midnight, I had almost convinced myself Adrian Cole had forgotten about me. I was wrong. The gala continued beneath warm chandelier light, and I kept moving between tables as if nothing unusual had happened. Pour. Smile. Clear. Repeat. It was easier when my hands had something to do. Adrian remained at his corner table, speaking quietly with men whose suits probably cost more than my monthly rent. He never called me over, never interrupted my work. But every few minutes, I felt his attention cross the room. Not invasive, not demanding, just there. When my shift finally ended, I changed into jeans, a navy sweater, and sneakers in the employee locker room. My feet ached after 8 hours of standing, and all I wanted was the subway and my tiny apartment in Queens. I stepped through the staff entrance and found a black sedan waiting at the curb. A man in a charcoal coat approached me. Miss Bennett. I stopped. Yes. Mr. Cole asked me to drive you home. Of course he did. Tell Mr. Cole I know how to use the subway. He said you might say that. I stared at him. Did he also prepare my second answer? No, ma'am. Good. My second answer is still no. I walked toward the corner. Claire. I knew the voice before I turned. Adrian stood beneath the hotel awning, one hand in his coat pocket. You really do dislike accepting help. I dislike help I did not ask for. He came closer, stopping several feet away. Fair distinction. Then we agree. Apparently. I expected him to insist. He did not. Instead, he held out a business card. The hotel group has an opening in guest relations. Better hours. Better salary. You would be good at it. I looked at the card but did not take it. Did you arrange that? I made one phone call. I laughed once, without humor. That is exactly the problem. His expression sharpened. What problem? You see something you want fixed, and you move people around until it looks right to you. I am offering you an opportunity. No, you are creating one because you feel sorry for me. I do not feel sorry for you. Then stop treating me like a project. The city hummed around us. A taxi rolled through the wet intersection. Somewhere down the block, a horn sounded. Adrian looked at the card in his hand, then slowly lowered it. Most people ask me for favors. Then tonight must be exhausting for you. That almost smile appeared again. You have no idea. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. My stomach dropped. What is that? Compensation for what happened tonight? I did not touch it. Absolutely not. Claire. No, you have not even asked how much. Because the amount does not matter. Something changed in his face. Everyone has a number. There it was. The sentence that told me more about Adrian Cole than any magazine article ever could. I stepped closer, not because I was brave, but because I was suddenly angry enough to forget who people said he was. That is your problem. His eyes locked onto mine. Explain. You think everything has a price. Jobs. Loyalty. Silence. People. The driver beside the sedan became very interested in the pavement. Adrian said nothing. I continued. Maybe money gets people to obey you. Maybe your name gets doors opened. But that does not mean you understand what something is worth. For the first time that night, Adrian looked genuinely surprised. I stepped back. Good night, Mr. Cole. Then I walked toward the subway entrance. He did not follow me. He did not order the driver after me. He simply stood beneath the hotel lights with the envelope still in his hand. I reached the stairs before his voice stopped me one last time. Claire. I looked back. What? His expression was different now. Quieter. Almost thoughtful. Nobody has said no to me 3 times in one night. I tightened my coat around myself. Maybe you have been asking the wrong people. Then I disappeared down the stairs, unaware that Adrian Cole was no longer trying to decide what he could give me. He was trying to understand why I was the first person who wanted nothing from him. 3 days later, I learned that humiliation could follow you home even after you had changed out of the uniform. I was standing behind the counter of a small coffee shop in Queens, covering a morning shift for my friend Melissa, when my phone began vibrating beside the register. Once, twice, then 6 times in less than a minute. Claire. Melissa called from the espresso machine. I think you are famous. That sounds expensive. She did not laugh. That was when I looked. Someone at the gala had recorded part of what happened. The video was only 42 seconds long, but apparently 42 seconds was enough for strangers to decide who I was. I watched myself standing beneath those chandeliers, my face burning while that woman spoke. Then Adrian entered the frame. The clip ended before anyone could hear what happened afterward. The caption made it worse. Hotel server causes scene with VIP guests. My stomach sank. Comments multiplied beneath it. Some defended me. Others criticized my appearance, my uniform, even the way I stood. People who had never met me were discussing my body as though it were public property. I locked my phone and shoved it into my apron. Do not read them, Melissa said. I already did. At 11:17, my hotel supervisor called. His voice was painfully polite. Claire, management reviewed the situation. I stared through the coffee shop window at a city bus crawling through traffic. And we think it would be best if you did not return for your scheduled shifts this week. Because someone insulted me? Because the hotel cannot become part of a public controversy. I almost laughed. So, I am the controversy. Silence answered me. That was enough. By noon, I had lost almost half my weekly income. By 12:30, I was calculating rent, groceries, and the electric bill on the back of a receipt. By 1, a black sedan stopped outside the coffee shop. I knew who it belonged to before the rear door opened. Adrian walked inside wearing a dark overcoat, bringing the strange quiet with him that seemed to follow powerful men into ordinary places. Melissa looked at me. I shook my head. No, Adrian reached the counter. You have not heard what I came to say. I know exactly what you came to say. Do you? You called somebody. His silence confirmed it. Claire, the hotel made a mistake. And you are going to fix it? Yes. No, his jaw tightened. They dismissed you because wealthy people embarrassed themselves. I know. Then why are you protecting them? I am not protecting them. I am protecting me. He studied my face. Explain. I pulled off my apron and stepped around the counter. For most of my life, people have decided what I should wear, where I should stand, how much space I should take up, and whether I belonged in a room. I am done letting other people make those decisions. I am trying to help by making another decision for me. That stopped him. Outside, tires whispered over wet pavement. Inside, the coffee grinder roared for 3 seconds, then silence returned. You told me something the other night, I said. Something I needed to hear. His expression softened slightly. I remember. Then live by it. He said nothing. Do not tell me not to let strangers decide my worth and then decide what my life should look like, because you have more power than they do. Adrian looked toward the window. For the first time since meeting him, he seemed uncertain. Not angry. Uncertain. So what do you want me to do? He finally asked. The question surprised me because men like Adrian Cole probably did not ask it often. Nothing. His eyes returned to mine. Nothing. Let me figure this out. And if you need help? I picked up the receipt with my calculations written across the back. Then I will ask. He nodded once. No argument. No envelope. No phone call made in front of me. He simply reached into his coat, took out the same business card I had refused 3 nights earlier, and placed it face down on the counter. This is not an offer, he said. Then what is it? A door. You decide whether it opens. He turned and walked away. I waited until the sedan disappeared into Queens traffic before flipping the card over. There was no job title written beneath his name this time. Only a phone number, and beneath it, 4 words written in blue ink. Your choice. Not mine. I kept Adrian Cole's card in my wallet for 11 days before I called him. Not because I wanted rescuing. Because I finally understood the difference between accepting a door and asking someone else to carry me through it. During those 11 days, I worked extra shifts at the coffee shop, updated my resume after midnight, and applied to 23 jobs. 4 rejected me. 17 never answered. 2 offered interviews for positions that paid less than the hotel. Every morning, I told myself I was fine. Every night, I opened my wallet and stared at 4 handwritten words. Your choice. Not mine. On the 11th morning, I called. Adrian answered after 1 ring. Claire. I frowned. You saved my number? Yes. That is slightly unsettling. You called me. Do not ruin this. A quiet laugh came through the phone. It was the first time I had heard him sound like an ordinary man. What do you need? He asked. Need. Not want. Not what can I buy you. I took a breath. Information. 2 days later, I walked into the Cole Foundation's community center in Brooklyn wearing the best blazer I owned. Adrian had told me they needed someone to coordinate hospitality training for women returning to the workforce. He had not recommended me. He had not scheduled an interview. He had given me a website and the hiring manager's name. Everything after that was mine. The interview lasted 53 minutes. Nobody mentioned Adrian. Nobody mentioned the gala. They asked about my experience, my ideas, and how I would handle clients who felt invisible in professional spaces. That question stayed with me. I would start by listening, I said. People spend too much time telling others what confidence should look like. 3 hours later, they called. I got the job. My salary was better than the hotel, but that was not what made me sit on my kitchen floor and cry. I had earned it without Adrian making a single phone call. That evening, I found him waiting outside the community center. No black sedan at the curb. No driver hovering nearby. Just Adrian holding 2 paper cups of coffee. I heard someone got hired today. I took 1 cup. Did you interfere? No. Did you call anyone? No. Did you threaten anyone? With an uncomfortable silence. His mouth twitched. I considered it. I laughed before I could stop myself. We walked toward the corner as sunset turned the windows above us orange. For once, he did not lead. He matched my pace. Why this place? I asked. Why fund something like this? Because people deserve second chances. That sounds unusually hopeful for you. Do I seem hopeless? I looked at his expensive coat, his controlled expression, the way strangers instinctively gave him space on the sidewalk. You seem like a man who thinks control is the same thing as certainty. He stopped walking. You do enjoy analyzing me. You make it easy. Most people find me difficult. Most people are afraid of disappointing you. His gaze held mine. And you are not. I thought about it. I am more afraid of disappointing myself. Something softened behind his eyes. We continued walking. At the subway entrance, he reached into his coat. For one terrible second, I expected another envelope. Instead, he pulled out nothing. He simply put his hands into his pockets. I smiled. You are learning. Apparently. Was that difficult? Extremely. I laughed again. Then his expression became serious. Claire, if this job ever stops being what you want, you owe me nothing. I studied him beneath the glow of the streetlight. The most powerful thing Adrian had done for me was not opening a door. It was standing back while I walked through it myself. Thank you, I said. He nodded. For the job? No. I started down the subway stairs, then looked back. For finally understanding the difference between helping me and choosing for me. Adrian stood silently above me as commuters passed between us. Then he smiled. I am beginning to think you might be the most expensive lesson I have ever learned. I thought everything had a price. His smile faded into something warmer. That is what I am learning, Claire. I learned the truth about Adrian Cole on a Thursday evening when I found him sitting on the floor beside an old woman's chair, patiently fixing the buckle on her shoe. 6 weeks had passed since I started at the community center, and Adrian had kept his promise. He never interfered with my work. He visited occasionally, usually for meetings upstairs, and when we crossed paths, he treated me exactly as I had asked to be treated. Like someone capable of standing on her own. That evening, a thunderstorm had rolled across Brooklyn just before closing. Rain rattled against the windows while I finished paperwork at my desk. I heard voices down the hall and assumed another staff member was still there. Then I recognized Adrian's. It sounded different. Softer. I followed it to the small reading room and stopped at the doorway. An elderly woman with silver hair sat beside the window. Adrian knelt in front of her, fastening the strap on her orthopedic shoe. His expensive jacket was folded over a plastic chair. There, he said. Now you cannot complain that I never do anything useful. The woman smiled. You still worry too much. Adrian looked up and saw me. For the first time since I had known him, he seemed caught off guard. Claire. The woman turned toward me. You must be the woman who keeps telling him no. I nearly choked. Adrian closed his eyes. Aunt Evelyn. What? You talk about her. That was even worse. I looked at Adrian. You talk about me? Apparently too much. Evelyn laughed, and something about the sound changed the room. Adrian helped her stand, slowly and carefully, then walked her to a waiting car beneath the awning. When he returned, I was still there. Your aunt? I asked. My mother's older sister. He picked up his jacket, but did not put it on. She raised me after my mother died. The rain filled the silence between us. How old were you? 14. I am sorry. He nodded once. My father disappeared from my life not long afterward. Evelyn was the only person who stayed. Suddenly, pieces of him began fitting together. The constant planning. The need to know where everyone was. The way he treated uncertainty like an enemy. That is why you control everything, I said. Adrian looked toward the rain-darkened windows. When enough people leave, you start believing the only way to keep something is to hold it tightly. His voice was quiet. No performance. No power. Just truth. I leaned against the doorway. That sounds exhausting. It is efficient. That was not my question. He smiled faintly. Yes, it is exhausting. I walked toward him. You know what I think. I suspect you are going to tell me regardless. You are not afraid of losing control. His eyes met mine. You are afraid of being powerless when someone you care about walks away. The smile vanished. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he asked, and what are you afraid of? The question landed harder than I expected. I looked down at my hands, taking up space. Adrian frowned. You do not seem afraid of that. Because I got good at pretending. I told him about high school photographs I avoided. Chairs I worried about before sitting down. Stores where I pretended I did not want the dress because asking for a larger size embarrassed me. Years spent making jokes about myself before anyone else could. People think confidence means never hearing those voices, I said. Sometimes it just means refusing to obey them. Adrian studied me differently then. Not with pity, with recognition. Two people who had built opposite defenses against the same fear. He controlled the world so it could not abandon him. I had spent years shrinking so the world would accept me. Claire, he said quietly, I thought I helped you become stronger. I shook my head. You did not. Something in his expression fell. I smiled. You reminded me that I already was. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the East River. Adrian looked away, almost as if the words had reached somewhere money and influence never could. And standing there beneath fluorescent lights in an ordinary community center, I finally understood the man everyone feared. Adrian Cole did not crave power because he believed he was invincible. He craved it because once, long ago, he had learned what it felt like to have none. The first sign that Adrian was frightened was not anger. It was the fact that he stopped asking me what I wanted. 2 weeks after that rainy Thursday, I arrived at the community center and found a black sedan waiting outside. The driver opened the rear door. "Mr. Cole needs you to come with me." I stayed on the sidewalk. "Did Mr. Cole ask me?" The driver hesitated. "He said it was important." That was not my question. 10 minutes later, Adrian arrived himself. He stepped from another car wearing the expression I had learned meant every emotion had been locked behind a steel door. "Claire, you cannot work here today." I stared at him. "Good morning to you too. I am serious." "So am I." "What?" He glanced toward the building. "Someone has been asking questions about you." "Who?" "A business associate who has reasons to dislike me." My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "What kind of questions?" "Where you work, where you live, whether you matter to me." The last sentence hung between us. "And what did you tell them?" "Nothing." "Then why am I being sent somewhere?" Adrian stepped closer. "Because until I understand what they want, I need to know you are safe." There it was. Need. Not ask. Not choose. Where? A private property outside the city. I almost laughed from disbelief. "You want me to hide because somebody asked about me?" "Temporarily." "No," his jaw tightened. "Claire, this is not negotiable." The words changed everything. The traffic seemed to fade. Even the morning wind felt suddenly colder. I looked at the man who had spent weeks learning how to stand beside me instead of in front of me, and I watched fear turn him back into the person he had always been. "You do not get to say that. This is different." "Why?" "Because you are scared." His eyes hardened. "Because I know this world better than you do." "Then explain it to me. Give me the information and let me decide." "I cannot take that chance." I stared at him. "Listen to yourself." Adrian looked away. "I am trying to protect you." "No. You are trying to control the outcome." He went silent. I stepped closer. "You are doing exactly what they did." His eyes snapped back to mine. "Do not compare me to those people." "Why not?" My voice shook now, but I refused to lower it. "They looked at me and decided where I belonged. They decided how I should feel about myself. They decided I was too much for their room. I have never thought that about you." "Then stop deciding what I am allowed to choose." That landed. I saw it in his face. The certainty disappeared first. Then the anger. What remained underneath was the same fear I had seen when he spoke about losing his family. "If something happened because I let you walk away," he said quietly, "I would never forgive myself." "You keep using that word." "What word?" "Let." Silence. Adrian looked toward the sedan, then back at me. "I do not know how to do this." For once, there was no authority in his voice. "Do what?" "Care about someone without trying to control every possibility." My anger softened, but my answer did not. "Then learn." He breathed out slowly. "And if learning means I lose you, then at least you will know I stayed or left because it was my decision." The city moved around us. A bus stopped at the corner. Someone hurried past carrying coffee. Ordinary life continued while Adrian stood completely still. Finally, he nodded. All right. All right, what? You choose." I watched him carefully. "Start by telling me everything I need to know." "I will." "And no decisions behind my back." He hesitated, then nodded again. "No decisions behind your back." I turned toward the community center. His voice followed me. "Claire." I stopped. "I am still afraid." I looked over my shoulder. "Good." He frowned. "Good. Now you can learn the difference between fear and permission." For the first time since he arrived, Adrian said nothing. And somehow, his silence told me he finally understood. Adrian kept his promise for exactly 9 days, and somehow that made what happened next harder. He told me everything I needed to know. The questions about me had come from a former business partner named Victor Hale, a man who understood that Adrian valued privacy and had apparently mistaken my presence in his life for leverage. Nothing happened. No confrontation. No dramatic midnight phone call. Just unfamiliar cars appearing near the community center, strangers asking harmless questions that did not feel harmless, and Adrian becoming quieter every day. He never ordered me into a car again. He never told me where I could go, but I could feel him fighting himself whenever I left his sight. On the 9th evening, I finished work at 7 and found him waiting across the street beneath a streetlight. You have been standing there long? I asked. 20 minutes. That is almost normal. I am improving. We walked 3 blocks without speaking. The October air had turned sharp, carrying the smell of rain and food carts through Brooklyn. Finally, Adrian stopped outside a small bookstore that had already closed. It is over, he said. What is? Hail. My stomach tightened. Adrian must have seen the question in my face because he immediately continued. Nothing happened to him. We reached an agreement. He will stay away from you and the center. I exhaled. You could have started with that. I am learning. Slowly. He smiled, but it vanished almost immediately. Claire, there is something else. I waited. I cannot keep doing this. For words. Quietly spoken. Still, they hit harder than I expected. Doing what? Watching you become part of my world while pretending my world has no consequences. That sounds suspiciously like another decision you made without me. It is. At least he admitted it. Adrian looked toward the dark bookstore window. You were right about me. I turn fear into rules. I turn uncertainty into control. Then I call it protection because that sounds better. I swallowed. So what are you saying? I am saying you should walk away from me. A strange ache opened beneath my ribs. You want me to leave? His eyes met mine. No, the answer came instantly. That is what makes this difficult. For once, Adrian Cole looked like a man with no strategy. If I ask you to stay, he continued, part of me will always want to build walls around everything I care about. I do not want you living inside those walls. You could change. I am trying. Then why decide the ending before you get there? He was silent. I stepped closer. You finally learned not to control my choices, Adrian. Do not turn leaving into another choice you make for me. His expression broke into something almost helpless. Then what do you want? I had asked him to say those words before. Now that he did, I realized I needed to answer them honestly. I want space. Pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. How much? I do not know. All right. No calls unless I call first. No drivers outside my apartment. No checking with the center to make sure I arrived safely. His jaw tightened at that one. Claire. I raised an eyebrow. He closed his eyes briefly. Fine. And Adrian? Yes. Do not wait for me. That was the hardest sentence I had spoken. He stared at me for several seconds, then reached behind himself and opened the bookstore alcove gate that separated us from the sidewalk. An ordinary gate. An ordinary gesture. Yet I understood exactly what it meant. Nothing blocked my path. The way is open, he said. I looked at him. That is it. His voice dropped. If I have to keep you here, then I never deserved you here. My eyes burned, but I refused to look away. Then I stepped past him. He did not reach for me. He did not follow. After 20 feet, I turned around. Adrian was still beneath the streetlight, hands in his coat pockets, watching me go. For most of his life, power had meant making people stay. That night, for the first time, he proved he was changing by letting someone leave. 3 months later, I walked into another Manhattan ballroom and realized the room had not changed. I had. The chandeliers were just as bright. The champagne glasses still caught the light like tiny mirrors. Men in tailored tuxedos talked about investments while women in designer gowns moved between tables covered in white linen. Once, a room like that had made me measure myself against every person inside it. That night, I simply walked in. I wore a midnight blue dress I had chosen because I loved the way I felt in it, not because it hid anything. My name was printed on the evening program beneath the words Community Employment Initiative. The program I had helped build in Brooklyn had placed 43 women in permanent jobs over the previous 2 months, and I had been invited to speak about it. Me, Claire Bennett. The woman who once wanted to disappear through a service exit was entering through the front doors as a guest. I noticed the woman in diamonds almost immediately. She stood beside the bar, holding a champagne glass, wearing the same polished expression I remembered. Her eyes found me. Then they moved over my dress, my body, my name badge. For 1 second, the old instinct returned. Shoulders inward, eyes down, become smaller. I felt it. Then I let it pass. I smiled at her. Not sarcastically, not triumphantly. I simply smiled and continued walking. That was when I saw Adrian. He stood near the far end of the ballroom in a black suit, speaking with 2 board members. 3 months had passed without a single call from him. No driver outside my apartment. No mysterious gifts. No messages delivered through other people. He had given me exactly what I asked for. even when part of me had secretly wondered whether silence meant I had become easy to forget. Then his eyes found mine. He stopped speaking. The expression on his face answered every question I had been too proud to ask. Still, he did not come toward me. That mattered. Adrian Cole, the man who once believed power meant controlling every outcome, stayed exactly where he was. He waited, so I crossed the ballroom myself. People greeted me as I passed. This time, I did not wonder whether I belonged among them. "Hello, Adrian." His voice was quieter than I remembered. "Claire, you did not call. You told me not to. You actually listened." It was terrible. I laughed, and the tension between us softened. "I heard about the program," he said. 43 placements. 45 as of this morning." A genuine smile appeared. "Of course." I studied him. "Did you have anything to do with tonight?" "No, my invitation?" "No, the speaking slot." "Claire, I am checking. You earned all of it." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The quartet played somewhere behind me, and I remembered another night beneath similar lights when I had held a brass name tag so tightly it left an imprint in my palm. "Do you remember what you told me the first night?" I asked. "Every word. I spent months thinking you gave me something that night." Adrian shook his head slowly. "I did not." "No, you did not." I looked around the ballroom. "You just made me stop long enough to realize I was giving something away." His eyes stayed on mine. "I was wrong about one thing. Only one. Let me have this moment." I smiled. "Go ahead." He took a breath. "You never needed me to tell you what you were worth." My throat tightened. "No, and I never had the right to decide it." "No," his smile was almost uncertain. "I know that now." I looked at the man who once thought everything had a price and realized he had finally learned the difference between value and possession. "Would you like to have coffee with me sometime?" I asked. Adrian blinked. "Are you asking me?" "That is generally how invitations work." "Then yes." "Good." I started toward the stage as my name was announced. Halfway there, I looked back. Adrian had not followed. He simply stood among the most powerful people in Manhattan, smiling as I walked toward a microphone that belonged entirely to me. Once, I thought confidence meant entering a room and proving I deserved to be there. I know better now. Worth is not something a room gives you. It is not something cruelty can take from you. And the right person will never ask you to become smaller so they can feel bigger.